This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast revisiting television, sci-fi, fantasy, and everything in between.
This week, Automan, episodes 4 and 5.
Well, your suggestion that I see if there were any other disappearances in the Caribbean was a good one. My friend, the FBI computer, says 6 more men have vanished on business trips to San Cristobal Island in the past 18 months.
With no trace?
Well, no, not exactly. Last month, the body of one of the missing men washed up on Wynwood Key in Florida.
Body? Otto, does your friend at the FBI know the cause of death?
Sorry, Walter, the sharks didn't leave much to analyze.
I better call the lieutenant.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast recording its basement sessions. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
We've got to take a detour to the morgue.
You know what's real, Jordan?
What's that?
We're recording in person for the first time in what's got to be more than a year.
I know, it's crazy.
We're down now in my basement.
Mm-hmm. It's lovely.
Surrounded by many boxes the homeowners have left here for me.
I think this is probably the setup that a lot of people doing podcasts have.
Well, I think this is how Nirvana recorded their early albums.
Yeah. This is just as good.
It's just as good.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be just as successful.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jordan. I understand you've got a game for us today.
I do. Anytime we do one of these weird shows that seem, at least to me, like plots and things are sort of just like picked out of a hat, I think it's time to build an episode. So we are going to build an episode of Automan.
Have we done this before?
We have.
Oh, great. Okay.
So the basic rules is it's essentially like the old game MASH that you did as a kid. Maybe you didn't do it.
Oh, with the little hand thing, the little paper thing?
So what it is there's a bunch of, I'll give you a bunch of categories, and you're going to also come up with one for these. We're going to do a number, and then it's going to come up with an episode, and we'll see what our episode looks like.
Great.
It'll make sense once we get through it.
All right.
So,
I wish you had built one of those little paper things.
I should have.
Choose.
I should have. So, okay, so the first thing, the places that it could take place, this episode, a tennis court.
Okay.
Ancient caves.
Okay.
Space station.
Okay.
Racetrack.
Okay.
A traveling carnival.
Okay.
Or, what do you think?
Oh, I get to pick one?
Yeah.
You already said space, so that's out of the question. And you've already said carnival, so circus is out of the question.
Mm-hmm. And I picked tennis court because I was hoping for a Jimmy Connors-esque episode because we've already had a dance one, but we didn't have a tennis one.
Oh, that's right. Although we've been promised in the opening,
Mm-hmm.
haven't we? Let's say the UN.
You got it. All right. And in the episode, Automan is going to learn about, and by the way, I did this before this the episode where he learns about stuff. So he's going to learn about pride, envy, greed, lust, gluttony, or, Luke?
Oh, what sins are allowed? Let's say he's going to learn about animal husbandry. That's the seventh sin, right?
Yeah, that's the last one. So the basic plot of the episode is going to be people being killed in their dreams.
Okay.
A bomb countdown.
Okay.
Demon possession.
Okay.
Police budget cuts.
Okay.
And mobsters using wineries as a front. I thought there had to be a mobster because every episode seems to have a mobster.
Oh, very
in it.
mob heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I have to come up with one?
Mm-hmm.
Something he's going to confront. This is the crime or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The crime or whatever.
Yeah. I can change the category to say crime or whatever.
Automan has to move Wally to a new apartment. It's not a crime, but it's something it's an obstacle.
Yeah.
Wally's moving.
He's moving. The stakes have never been higher. There's those 2 more things. The random object that's going to show up in the episode is a bag full of diamonds, a smelly old couch, poisoned food, a super-powered suit, like another super-powered suit,
Oh.
or a picture frame.
Okay.
And what do you think?
Oh, how about some flashy shoes?
All right. I like that one. I don't know how that's evocative of anything.
Hey, there's a smelly couch. Why can't there be flashy shoes?
You're right. And the last thing is, because it's become a trend on this show, is Automan costume change. And he's either going to dress up as a chef, a pirate, an astronaut, a construction worker, or a mime. And one more.
Oh, you missed cowboy, so we'll add cowboy.
Cowboy. That's your Western Canada coming out.
There you go. It's a lot of cosplay for Automan.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm going to need from you is a number between 1 and 10.
1 and 10, eh? Should I just roll? Should I roll and make this totally random?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
7.
So give me a moment. I'm going to punch it into the continuing drag computer, and we'll find out what this answer is. So give me a second. Okay, we're back.
Listeners don't know, but we left while the computer ran its calculations. Took about 17 hours, but it's finished now.
It's worth it. It's worth it. So this is what the episode's going to look like, and we'll see what this episode is. And I think this is similar to how the writers of this show come up with episodes. So it's going to take place on a racetrack.
Okay.
Automan is going to learn about animal husbandry, so thanks for that.
Makes sense.
The basic plot of the episode is going to be about police budget cuts.
Okay.
Random object is a pair of flashy shoes.
Oh.
And Automan will be dressed at some point in the episode as a cowboy. What do you think that episode is?
Oh, well, I mean, I think there are budget cuts happening at the LAPD.
Mm-hmm.
It may affect Wally's position as computer boy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what his card says.
Yeah,
LAPD,
computer boy. Yeah.
So when they get a crime that involves illegal betting at a racetrack, Automan obviously dresses as a cowboy, but the only clue they have is the villain has flashy shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Automan, to get in the mood to play a cowboy, he watches a bunch of videos on animal husbandry, and we get like a real gross scene midway through where he practices it.
I really like it. I think that's a good episode.
That's a pretty good episode of Automan.
I think it's a solid 6, which for this show is pretty good.
I mean, it is pretty good. I mean, it couldn't be an episode of Automan, though, because he doesn't pretend to be a millionaire. So.
Well, it's a good segue to episode 4, Ships in the Night.
All right, here's the IMDb summary for episode 4. A businessman goes missing in San Cristobal, so Curtis and Roxanne are sent to find him. Walter finds out that others have disappeared, and one was found dead, so he and Otto rush down to warn them. So this episode starts, as the synopsis implies, in San Cristobal.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, real place or fake place?
Well, it's funny. I looked it up, and it's hard to tell because that particular name is used in many cities and actually a couple little islands and stuff. So I don't know if it's real or not. I think it's supposed to just be a generic enough Spanish town name that it can be used for this island. I don't think it's supposed to be a real place.
Yeah, the Google search I did brought back San Cristobal, Mexico, in Mexico, but that is a landlocked city, so it couldn't have been that one.
Yeah.
At any rate, there's a rich guy there, and he's there because I guess this island or coastal place is known as being a real tax shelter of some sort. Like how that plays into the crime of this is a little hard to say, but I guess it attracts a lot of rich people.
Yeah.
And he's meeting with a criminal named Bobby Sawyer. And essentially, correct me if I'm wrong, he needs this rich man needs $2 million to upgrade his hotel.
I didn't understand exactly what the transaction was about. I know they started talking about cocaine right away, but I didn't know what the exact use of the cash was right away.
It was I for some reason in my head it was a hotel, but I don't know why I think that. But he needs $2 million. He does not want to get a bank loan for some reason, not clear. But he has $530K in the bank, which he's hoping to leverage to get $2 million. And of course, Bobby's just like, have you thought about selling cocaine?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the amount of times you and I have had that conversation where it just comes to, like, have you just thought about selling cocaine?
And this guy is just like, sure, why not? I'll give that a try.
Yeah. Well, no, the guy's like, have you thought about selling cocaine? He's like, I haven't. He's like, it's really easy. And you make a lot of money. And he's like, sold.
So let's give it a shot. And then we cut to the next day. This man's on an airplane. Theoretically, I thought they were probably smuggling the cocaine when it started. But in fact, all that happens is Bobby Sawyer has one of his goons pull a gun and toss the man out of the airplane.
That was something that made me laugh because it looked okay. It was one of those, you'll know the era, like it becomes the stunt guy jumping out of the plane sort of thing. And it looks fine. But I wasn't sure why they were on the plane. I'm like, they're not transporting coke. They're not transporting money. And not only that, I think he's come to the plane with his cash, and I'm like, but where are you flying him to? Like, it's going to go bad.
Yeah, it did seem a bad thing, and I'm gonna go. The stunt wasn't the best because the rich man is quite elderly with quite silver hair, and when you cut to the stunt man flying out of the plane, quite a luscious head of black hair.
I'm fine with that. I liked it.
I actually even think, and I'm sure is the truth, was not even shot for Automan. I'm sure it's just some stock footage.
No,
they found somewhere.
I agree with you. I think it was the same. I think it was just like, we have a stock footage of a guy falling on a plane. This works.
Because they'll use it a couple times during the episode. At any rate, this is kind of the premise is when we get back to L.A., Detective Curtis and Roxanne are put on the case of this missing rich guy because the mayor wants them to look into it.
It's something that's come up before on this show, which is weird because the Los Angeles Police Department is constantly called on cases that are out of their jurisdiction. And they always have to try to talk it away. The captain's always like my buddy from the federal government says we need us to do it because we're the best. And it's always like, why can't these? Why did you even set it in Los Angeles? Because they want to go to these locales, I guess. But it's just funny that there's no reason why this Los Angeles Police Department would be doing these cases.
This crime in particular, no part of the crime took place anywhere near Los Angeles. It's totally outside of their jurisdiction. But if the mayor says so, we're going.
Yeah.
And they're being sent under the auspice of being a wealthy old man and his secretary/mistress.
Well, what I like about it though is I don't know I can't remember what the guy's name is. Let me look up the
captain.
Captain Boyd.
Captain Boyd.
Captain Boyd. He says to them, "You guys are gonna go," because he really likes Jack, because Jack's the be all and end all for him, and he wants Roxanne to go with him for reasons. And then he says to Wally, "Go use that computer of yours. Go make him an unbreakable cover." That's what he wants the computer to make. It's such a tight alibi, and there's no way you could ever pick holes in these characters they've created, and it's just a business guy and his secretary.
And it was very funny. I was like, my man, it's 1984? Nobody can check up on anything.
Yeah. So I know it's like, who are you? My name's John. Is it? Yeah. Done.
You can't be. It's unbreakable.
Yeah.
Anyway, cut to Wally. He's going down to his home computer basement as always. And Automan's been doing research on the crime already. I guess he's already set up the alibi, so in his free time, he was looking into the missing person.
You mentioned he goes down to his basement, and I know we're not talking about the next episode, but the next episode, he's in a completely different house. Did you notice that?
Oh, that was established sort of in the pilot. Remember that old lady? He rents an apartment in a house, and the old lady appears to just let him use the basement as a computer room.
Right. So who is that? His apartment? That's not his apartment.
No. That's just he purely uses the basement as a huge computer room.
So it seems like such a weird decision for a set. Like, why not just have him have a house then that he has why even introduce the landlady and all these? It just seems stupid.
No one would believe a computer boy could afford their own house.
I suppose. Well, you answered my questions.
But yes, he's down there. Automan's been looking into the crime, and what he's discovered is that, in fact, 6 rich dudes have gone missing there. One was even found in Florida after being mostly eaten by sharks. Nice touch to that.
By the way, this is our second episode where people have gone missing by being taken up in planes, and people can't figure it out.
I mean, there's no better way to do it.
Yeah.
Once you're in a plane, you basically disappear.
Yeah.
So basically, they're like, oh, we better warn Detective Curtis and Roxanne in San Cristobal. There's more missing people, and that this is probably very dangerous or whatever. I mean, obviously, it's dangerous. You're looking to a missing person. And so Automan picks up the phone and uses his computer voice to attempt to call San Cristobal, and he's like, "Oh, the phone lines are down on the entire island or the entire town. We're gonna have to fly there and warn them ourselves."
Yeah,
and I was just like, "Man, oh man, this is such why do they paint themselves into such a corner?"
And that's what I thought.
In order to just get that, just be like, "Oh, you need to go Wally."
Well, that's the funny thing. They've created this conflict too. The only result of that is there's an extra scene that they have to work their way out of, which is like, why would the police department, why would they just not have had the captain go, "Hey, Jack and Wally, you guys are going." And Roxanne's there too. Sure.
I mean, maybe it's what you said in the past. It's just the episode wasn't long enough, so here's some pretext to
Yeah, I mean, this conflict. Can you imagine? It's like, yeah, so it's just so they can go fly there now.
Yeah, they jump in the autoplane, fly down to San Cristobal.
But I think the first time we've seen the autoplane in a while. I actually thought they weren't going to use it anymore because they'd been using the helicopter. And we got a couple shots of the autoplane. But what I like is, I think also this episode was a little short because the amount of, one, we have an extended opening credits, which we haven't had in episodes before in this episode. And then also the flying scene takes a couple minutes. They just keep flying. And there's one part where no one's saying anything. It's just Automan and Wally are just sitting in a plane. I'm like, wow, this is quiet.
They make a lot of small talk about a movie they watched. Yeah. Which I'd never heard of this movie either.
Oh, I didn't even remember.
Although, is it me, or did the autoplane look better?
It did look better. I thought the same thing. It looked better. Because I think originally it was supposed to be a car that flew, and someone went, no, let's just make it its own design. So they've like streamlined it a little
So
bit.
I actually was like, oh, that autoplane looks pretty cool, actually.
Yeah.
At any rate, they get to San Cristobal. They land the autoplane. It obviously disappears once they land on the runway, which why do they keep landing on runways? All these security...
Yeah, why do they keep running on runways? It can land anywhere they want, right?
I don't know. Just turn into the autocopter and then land anywhere.
Yeah.
But security shows up when you land on this place, and they like pull out their guns. They're like, "What are you doing here? What happened to your plane?" And Wally's just like, "We don't have time for this. Automan, just vanish into thin air, and I'll just get arrested, and you just go warn our friends."
Yeah, so why didn't... Usually in these sorts of situations where people come with guns, Wally enters Automan.
Yes.
And can, not that he can control Automan, but they both are sharing consciousness within this form. Why not just have him be Automan and walk through a wall or whatever he needs to do to get away?
I'm not sure either. It was just to separate them and I guess push the plot forward mostly.
Because I mean, like, the idea, if you and I get into some hijinks and then something happens, the idea, you go, I'm going to let myself get arrested? That's got to be the last idea you'd have.
It's true. But it does get Automan out of there. He goes to the hotel casino they're staying at.
Yeah.
They do a thing. It's very funny. They've done this gag before with house phones, but I've just never been alive when hotels had this kind of like bank of house phones before. So it's
Yeah,
very funny to
they
watch
go
happen.
back to the well many times. And basically what the joke is that there is a series of phones in the lobby, let's call it, and that's where you can receive and
Make
phone calls. But the gag they have is that every time sort of Automan's calling someone, they're right beside him on the phone.
Well, they were doing it. I think it was supposed to be a little film noir-y because like Roxanne and Detective Kerr show up to take the call, and then they stand back to back and talk to each other like you would in a detective movie. And then and Detective Curtis was like, oh, the federal agent's here. This must be a big gay. Like he's so excited to see Automan.
Right. And I should mention, we didn't say before, of course, it took only the second scene, I think, appearance of Automan to wear a new outfit, so he doesn't have to wear his Automan suit. And this one, he's just wearing like a white suit. It's very I'm a Cuban drug lord kind of look.
I did finally notice the stuff that Seth was talking about last week, or I guess from last week.
The collar?
Yeah, it's like they put like one of those crackable glow sticks that glow, and they just like run it in the collar and the cuff. So I actually like it. It's actually a nice little touch.
Yeah, it's a little like wink to the audience that you can see him in an outfit, but just so you know, he's still kind of Automan because he has like glow happy. And actually, it does look good.
It's not bad. I was surprised. I'm like, this is actually surprisingly effective. Anyway, they're now alerted to the fact there's a lot of missing people. This is a bigger case than they thought. And we cut back to Wally. He's being held by the captain of the local police force. And he basically is talking his way out of it. He's just like, oh, I'm a cop from L.A. I'm here investigating a case of a missing person. And, we get the sense that this captain's not on the up and up because he's just like, oh, you don't say. Well, why don't I let you go to continue your investigation? And I thought this was going to be a bit of a longer thread. But, like, Wally walks out of the police station. Automan's walking up to like help him get out of that exact moment, and Wally's like, the cop let me out. I just told him what I was here to do. And Automan already knows. He's like, that captain you told, he's been deleting all the records about missing people, so he's the bad guy.
Yeah, it's just like, let's just get cut to the chase.
We're just flying through this. It's so funny. Detective Curtis, meanwhile, he's doing his thing. Like, he's there to basically like solve this missing persons case. So his undercover role is he's a rich guy who has money but wants more money. So he does what you do. You go to the bank and talk to a banker, but tell her, no, I don't want your bank money. I want you to somehow help me get an investment. Like, I was like, you would never show up at a bank and
with
do
the
this.
hope that maybe someone will overhear and then like, give you a side deal, which is very effective.
Well, I mean, it turns out this banker does have a direct line to old bad guy Bobby.
Bad guy Bobby.
Bad guy Bobby.
Yeah.
She calls up Bobby, and it's very funny because at least this was, I thought, nice. Is like she calls up Bobby, and she's like, "Hey, I found this guy. He says he has $500,000 he wants to throw down the drain somewhere." And Bobby's just like, "Yeah, no, that sounds really suspicious. No, thank you." And he just hangs up.
Yeah.
But unfortunately for Bobby, that corrupt police captain shows up, and he's just like, "Hey, listen, there's some cops here looking into that missing person. I'll murder Wally for you, but I want a 50% cut of all your crimes because I want to buy really nice cars for all my mistresses."
That's what I like. He's very explicit about it. He's like, I need more money. I know you said it was 10%. It's now 50%. By the way, I got a lot of mistresses, and they all need cars, and they all need money, so that's the deal.
It is the gag of just like, this car's for my mistress, but I need more for my other mistresses. At any rate, so now this guy Bobby just like, all right, well, I guess I'll call that banker back up and let's see if we can get this pigeon, they call him, get this pigeon in here, and I'll take his $500K. And like, it's so weird. There's like this weird thing in this episode. This episode's trying to be sexy.
Yes, it is.
And this banker calls up old man Detective Curtis. He's like 75 years old, this man. She's like, come over, we'll make arrangements to meet Bobby. And then she's like, he arrives, and like, there's no reason for the scene. They could have just gone to Bobby's house, but she's just like, oh, well, now that you're here, let's go have sex.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't know why. These people have no chemistry, but okay. Yeah. And then cut to, they're at Bobby's house. Like, they just needed to show you, Detective Curtis is very virile, despite being very elderly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's just supposed to be this thing of, like, it's a seedy underworld and anything, whatever we need to do to make a deal sort of deal.
Well, it's some of the times, too. Like, your hero can't be hero unless he's also, like, hypersexual.
Right.
Even though it makes no sense to what's happening here.
Yeah.
But
also, may I note, Roxanne has specifically been brought into this episode and is not used at all. I don't think we got maybe a couple more scenes with her where she's like there to bounce dialogue off of, but there was no reason to have her come out into this island and be involved in the action because she's not involved. I feel bad, and it's something, you know, you mentioning a sign of the times. In this kind of time period, they always have to have this kind of character, this female character. Usually, actually, it's like a doctor that they don't know what to do with, but it's like someone's like, well, we need a female lead. Is she ever going to have an episode or have any, you know, drive the plot forward or be important at all? Nope. She's just around.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. They're just like, oh, here she is, everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I will say, I think they gave her a last name this episode, which I thought was nice.
Hold on. I think I do know. Her name is Roxanne Caldwell.
Roxanne Caldwell.
Mm-hmm.
Do I still have no clear concept what her position with the police is?
No, because they made it seem like, maybe not the correct term, but a secretary of sorts, because all she ever seems to be doing is bringing people files, or she's an assistant or something. But yes, it's not clear at all.
But now she's given an assignment.
Yeah.
With like, so quickly Boyd thinks highly enough of her to send her with his best homicide detective.
Maybe she's like an actual good cop, and the only reason you see her moving files around because she's the only one doing her paperwork.
That could be the case.
Yeah.
That could be the case. At any rate, Bobby and Curtis finally meet, and it's going to be that scene where like they shows up and he's going to try to bait him with his money. But the funniest and most unrelated to the rest of the plot scene happens here, which I was just like blown away by.
This is where the guy's at the piano?
Yeah. He walks in. Bobby's playing the piano. Detective Curtis walks in with the banker, and he's like, here's that pigeon you ordered. And the first thing Detective Curtis says is when he hears Bobby talk, he's like, that voice, it's so familiar. And Bobby's like, oh, this is a cop. This guy's a cop. I know this cop.
Yeah, he's sitting behind the piano and then just pulls out a gun, and he's like, yeah, it's a cop. And then I think what you're alluding to is that they, in one scene, add this backstory that adds nothing to the episode, and there's no reason for it all, which is basically Jack may or may not have put this guy away at some point,
yeah, I think
or at least is involved.
He arrested him originally, but the guy managed to flee the country.
Yeah.
So
and has now changed his appearance.
Yeah, he's had so much plastic surgery, he is unrecognizable to Detective Curtis.
Yeah.
Which I'm just like, why bother? Like, this doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it's just, well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't think there's anything wrong with there have being a history with Jack and like, but use that in the episode. You know, it was the case he never was able to solve, and he really wants to nail this guy, and whatever the results of that might be. Or even a scene where they recognize each other, which will indicate how to solve the crime later because he knows how this guy operates. Or those are dumb excuses, or examples. But anything is better than going, hey, we used to know each other. Anyways, doesn't matter.
But I mean, I think just going on further, why even bother having a scene where just have him walk in and be like, oh no, it's that guy I tried to arrest that one time. Like, why have him?
That's what I mean. They could have just done that, yeah.
Like, why have him had so much plastic surgery? Which is it even possible to have so much plastic surgery that you are unrecognizable?
Well, here's the thing, and I know that this will be nitpicky, but the guy playing what's his name, Big Bad Bobby?
Big Bad Bobby.
Big Bad Bobby is about a 55-year-old man who looks just like a 55-year-old man.
Looks fine.
If he had a ton of plastic surgery, he'd look like a weird person. If you had so much that he was unrecognizable. But he looks like an old guy who's never had any plastic surgery.
This is the time period where they thought one day they were really going to nail plastic surgery.
Yeah. Like, not only are we're it's not to make you look younger or smoother or anything like that. It's to make you look like a different person with wrinkles and sagginess intact.
Yeah, so at any rate, all that happens now is Detective Curtis is kidnapped again.
Every episode. It's got to be every episode.
I mean, this time it's not so bad. He actually just gets like put in jail by the local police because they're corrupt. So
Oh, and there was a thing about this. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but we're going to see both Roxanne and Jack in prison, and they are unflappable. Neither of them seem to care at all. Jack's just like lounging in the chair. Roxanne, they're just having a casual conversation. They are not worried at all at being in this seemingly corrupt country with corrupt officials that who knows what the records are or what could happen to them. They're not worried at all.
It is very funny because, yeah, that's what basically what happens is Roxanne bribes her way into the prison to see Jack, and she's like, well, I better go tell the embassy you're here. And Jack's like, don't worry about it. That federal agent will figure it out. I'm just going to hang out here. And she's just like, but what about like the bad guys who know you're here? And he's like, oh, they won't kill me. They would never dare because I'm a LAPD officer. I'm just like, but the police detective's just said he'd kill Walt. Like, you should be dead by all means.
Yeah, well, it's just because they're like, we want Jack out of the scenario that we put him in, so we'll just put him to the side. But it's just like, well, why did you even have him go? He doesn't need to be in every episode. If you don't have anything for him to do.
Truly, they just had to get him out of the plot, but didn't want you to worry about him. So he's don't. He's just like, yes, you could tell the embassy and alert people to my situation, but don't. I'm just going to hang out here until Automan solves the crime.
Yeah, but more important, this I think is the first time we've had the amount of autonomy from Automan, sort of like going out on his own to want to do stuff. And so like it comes like Wally's like, I hope we find him at some point, where it's like, can't you call him up? Haven't we made that like clear? So they're like, him and Roxanne are just like walk around looking for him, which of course they find him doing the limbo.
Yes, it's Carnival on the island or
something.
Town.
Yeah.
And they find him enjoying the, quote, fruits of the tropics.
Yeah.
Automan's getting a little creepy these days.
Yeah.
He's doing limbo in a town square at, of course, impossible angles because he's Automan.
I love when superheroes or someone with superpowers use them for the lamest things possible. Like, can you believe?
Limbo?
Yeah, the limbo. I'm better at it than you. It's like, what a waste of your stupid powers.
If Wally hadn't pulled him away, he would have broken an island record.
Yeah. He would have won the medal of limbo.
I like they established what is now a character trait for him. Is if Automan's in public having too good a time, he will start stripping out of all of his clothing.
It is weird, right? Because he's done it twice now.
He does this limbo solo, everyone's impressed, and he just starts ripping his clothes off and exposing himself in his auto suit. And like everyone is staring at him like he is an alien now.
Right.
And Wally has to step in and be like, Automan, let's get out of here. They hop in the auto car, and of course some police see him. And I think we get a gag from the pilot. They return to a gag from the pilot.
Yes.
Where the police decide the corrupt police are going to chase down the auto car. And the funny part about this one is they did it once in the pilot, but in this one they're going to do it 3 times in a row in this chase sequence. But as we know, when the auto car makes a turn, it's like a hard 90-degree turn. Wally smashes his face against the window.
Yeah, something that the laws of physics would not allow you to do. It can do.
And the police chasing him are like, well, if he can do it, we can do it. And they do this 3 times in a row. First time they crash to a sign, and they somehow get back on the road, and they're like, whoa, they did it again. We can do it. Crash into a chicken coop.
I love that idea, though. Not only that it's a lame gag to repeat, but that you have characters that have that line of logic. Whereas, like, if I'm chasing you and you're in a Ferrari and I'm in a Volvo, and I see you making this very sports car-esque narrow turn, I would just slow down if I'm chasing you and then hopefully speed up to try to catch up later. I'd be like, well, these are 2 different cars with 2 different performance levels. Why do all the people in the world, they're like, if he could do it, I can do it. It's like, well, no, of course you can't.
No, I mean, that's it. And they finally crash into I think a lake or something, or the ocean.
Yeah.
And their car sinks, and the one cop's like, don't say anything.
Yeah, it's
some sort of gag about.
Yeah. It really is the joke that if you were 10, you would laugh. You're like, that's pretty funny. Can you believe the egg got all over his clothes, sort of thing?
Absolutely. But that is just to bring back that gag. Anyway, Automan and Wally go back to town. They break into the bank and I guess hack the computer systems for reasons I was never very clear on. Like, I don't know what they're looking for, but we get a scene where they like break into a bank, and I just didn't know what to make.
Well, doesn't
of it.
he say that like he stole $15 million and wants the captain to help him get caught or something?
Well, that's what I mean. Is like they break into this bank, and then once they're done that, they meet up with the corrupt police captain, or Wally does anyway, and he's just like, hey, I'm here. I want to talk to you about that case I'm here on. Like, he's still under the auspice of being here on a missing persons case. And what he does is he spins a story where I'm chasing a villain essentially Mr. Otto from the last episode,
Yeah.
where Otto's like a rich.
It was such a great
mobster.
side character. We got to bring him back.
We got to bring him back, and I'm here because I need to catch him. He's like, I'm hoping you can help me catch this Mr. Otto character. I don't remember what name they gave him this time, but it's basically the Mr. Otto character.
No, they say Mr. Otto.
Oh, is it Mr. Otto
Yeah,
again?
and actually, do you think, just thinking about it now, do you think on the side Automan still is running his crime empire?
I hope so. Maybe.
He did all the work. He did all the groundwork,
He did
right?
all the groundwork. There's no reason he could stop. He should stop.
Yeah, he keeps bringing like money he made from prostitutes to Wally, and Wally's like, oh man, I guess I'll invest it.
Oh no. So Wally's like so corrupt.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, I need your help, corrupt officer, to catch him. What I was thinking is, you also know bad guy Bobby.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we use these two birds to like catch them together, and then once we're done, I'll let you keep all the money, because he knows this guy's greedy. So this is like, they've invented a new plan where he will play another rich man to like attract the bad guy to him.
It's the classic, which I think now has been quite established. One of the biggest faults of this show is how complicated they think they need to make things, and it's always just, it's not even complicated at the beginning. It's like a plot that doesn't quite make sense for logic reason, and then they keep adding more complications for no real reason, and they do it every episode. It's just like, guys, just do like, Automan's got to stop evil corrupt guy from throwing people out of a plane.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, and mostly we just get to go back to that fun Mr. Otto scene of him. Now he's shooting craps, and
Yes.
Cursor's helping him win at craps. And
Mhm.
like, can you believe it? He's so rich. And like, that evil banker woman sees him, and he's just like, oh, hey, if you like making money, I can introduce you to a man who will make you lots of money, which didn't make any sense, because like, this guy appears to be so rich.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the idea is like, if you're that type of person, more is never enough, right?
Yeah. And of course, the banker's just like, also, you're very handsome as Automan, and I've already established that I will sleep with an elderly man. Why don't you come back to my apartment? And like, we get a scene where Automan like learns to kiss, and like,
Yeah.
him and the banker make out, and they get like a purple electric aura around him because he's such a good kisser.
Yeah, well, they've sort of shown this before in other things. Like, I think he's had a handshake with people and a few things like that where they get like a spark
Right.
of sort because he's
A
hologram. So anyways, he kisses this lady. It really does it for her, and like sparks fly.
Yeah. I mean, we have yet to figure out if Wally, like Data, made him fully functional.
Well, if he keeps ripping his clothes off, we're gonna find out
Yeah,
soon.
TBD. Soon
Yeah.
to find. What I do like is, though, as like this is happening, they make out. The whole point of this is so that this banker will eventually introduce Mr. Otto to bad guy Bobby, and they make out. Wally and Roxanne are hiding in the next room watching this happen.
Yeah.
The banker leaves, and then Wally and Roxanne walk in. They're like, Otto, you were so busy making out, you forgot to set the appointment. And then the phone rings. It's the banker on the phone setting up the appointment. She left that room like 15 seconds ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well,
baffling.
there's actually something else. I don't know if you noticed. I found it really odd. Is they kind of go back and forth a little bit to like the parade and what's happening now, and I don't think anyone decided whether it's night or day, because I don't know if you've noticed this.
Oh yeah, it seems to be swinging back.
It's
and forth.
back and forth. Like, they'll look out the window and it's day, and then the parade's at night, and then they'll go back to the parade and it's day. And I was like, is just no one paying attention to this at all? Like, it's just so
It's 'cause
shoddy.
all the carnival stuff they have, it's all stock footage. They have
Yeah.
it's just all stock footage they found of a carnival. Not a carnival, a carnival, if you will. But like, yeah, all
but
they
which
have
is
daytime
fine.
stuff.
Which is fine. But like, they make it consistent. Just
I
have
know.
it take place at the same time period.
It's crazy. This brings Automan to bad guy Bobby's place, where they're gonna like you assume they're gonna like do a similar deal to what he's made with all these other people, like sell cocaine and then we'll throw you out of a plane or something. But I was so baffled by what happened here, because he shows up. I assume I know what the scene's gonna be. And Bobby just starts telling Automan about how hard it is to work in this place, because all the politicians are corrupt. This corrupt police cop is like shaking him down for his money. He's like, Mr. Otto, can you believe what's happening to me here? He's like, why don't you buy me an island? And I'm just like, what's in this for the investor? There doesn't need to be anything. Bobby's just asking this rich guy to buy him an island.
No. I think what it is he knows of a local island that has some sort of government established that's very open to them. They basically just want money, and he wants Otto to invest so they both can go there and make more money. Is basically I think the idea. This is me reading between the lines a little bit, but I think it's, I'm the connection. You just need to give me money, and I will connect you with this place we can both go there and make way more money.
I see.
I think that's what it is.
He wants an investment
Yes.
to like buy out this town, and then Mr. Otto will have a passive investment.
Yeah, a passive investment, and basically they can do whatever they want and make a ton of money.
Right.
Yeah.
And like Mr. Otto, of course, has lots of money. He was like $500,000, no problem. And at that exact moment, they look out the window and they're like, "Oh, look, it's time for the Festival of Lights," which is what it looks like is about 8 or 9 lights being turned on and off on a black screen.
But it didn't even do. What it seemed like to me was just like looking at an apartment building where people had a couple lights on.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, is they clearly shot something. It doesn't make sense for the island. Like, there's no skyscrapers there. And you can't even see the skyscraper, so it looks more like they put up a black screen and then, like, a bunch of light bulbs in it, but in the approximation of where they would be in a...
Mm-hmm.
But there's, like, 9 or 10, and they start flashing on and off. And the whole purpose of it is like, oh, no, people are using a lot of electricity on the power grid.
Yeah.
So Otto feels
It's
fake.
so funny. They've come
Fate.
up with this funny way to reduce his overpower problem, but they just don't have the footage for it. So you're just like, what is happening? People are turning lights off? It's so dumb.
So Automan stumbles outside because he's like, I must excuse myself. And something I forgot to mention as we came to the scene, for no apparent reason, before Mr. Otto went to this meeting, he and Wally merged so that Wally
Yes.
could observe,
Yeah.
I guess. So what happens is Automan gets outside, power's going down, so he has to go away, leaving Wally by himself in front of this bad guy Bobby's place, where he's just immediately arrested by goons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a way for Wally to get caught.
Well, they just keep needing to find reasons to separate them. So it feels that way when you're watching it. Everything feels like it hasn't been smooth and conjoined very well. So you're just like, what? Why? Oh, because we just need them to be apart.
And it doesn't really matter, because what we do is we cut from this to the next day at the airfield where they agreed to meet with this $500,000. And what I love is, like, we'd seen this happen before. We saw that guy go up in the plane and get thrown out. And it was Bobby and his goons.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, for this particular flight, the corrupt cop shows up because he wants his money. The corrupt banker's there for some reason. She doesn't get anything out of this. She just shows up to this flight. Wally's on the plane already.
Why would I understand why in terms of a TV show, but in the logic of this world, why not just kill Wally? It's not like they have hesitation of killing people. Kill Wally. There's no reason for him. Not only do they not kill him, it's like, okay, so we're just going to tie him up. Why bring him on the plane?
I think the premise is, like, we kill people over, like, open air so they never gets traced back to us. But if that's the case, why Detective Curtis should be on that plane?
Yeah.
Like, I was just like, if you're going to bring everybody onto this plane, literally every character, Detective Curtis should also be on this plane.
Right.
But whatever, it doesn't really matter. Automan's like, I brought the $500,000 in 2 briefcases. And I thought there'd be a little more, like, playing with Mr. Otto. Like, now we're going to the island to buy it. Let's see what happens. He hands over the 2 cases of money.
Immediately.
They're just like, here's a gun. We're going to kill you. Get on the plane.
I thought the same thing, because at least in the last scenario, when the episode opens and the guy gets thrown out, they at least get him onto the plane and let him think he's going somewhere before throwing him out. This, like, why even do any of this?
They haven't even taken off. They announce, you're going to be murdered now. Get on the plane.
Yeah, we're going to murder you on the plane. Let's get on.
And, of course, they get up there. They're flying. Wally's the first one they throw off. And then it was what a very comical scene. It's Automan's turn, and he's just like, Automan doesn't care. So he just gets up and throws himself off the plane.
Yeah, he goes over and very quickly. What I do like, though, is how long he let Wally just free fall for.
Before he did it.
Yeah, and the fact that Wally didn't have a heart attack is something. But anyway, so Wally falls out. Automan decides to jump out himself, and then makes the plane that somehow they just morph through the roof.
Yeah, they make sure the roof is permeable, but the bottom is catchable.
Yeah, so Wally can essentially very
Fall
comfortably
into-
fall into the chair.
That's basically
and
he
they fly
calls
away.
Cursor, and they do that. What I did like, though, is when Automan throws himself out, all the actors are just like giving, like, the bad guys are giving, like, oh, that's weird. Well, what are you gonna do? He wanted to jump, I guess.
Yeah, they're only upset when they realize the money dissolves.
And I will argue they're not even upset, because after they all jump out, they look and see the money's gone. And one of them's like, well, I guess that Mr. Otto took it with him when he jumped. And they're like, oh, well, I guess we'll just have to get somebody else. Like, they're all so nonchalant about the entire encounter that they lose $500,000 and they just, like, shrug it off.
They land and immediately Automan and Wally show up.
Yeah,
like, oh, you thought we were gone, did you?
We're here on the ground.
Yeah.
And the entire army pulls up with Detective Curtis, who somehow got out of prison.
Yeah.
Gathered the entire army around.
His charisma alone has convinced the army to come apprehend these people.
I don't think Roxanne's anywhere to be seen.
No.
And
He traded her is what it was. He said, she can stay in prison, I'll come out. And they said, deal.
And they're arrested. Like, that's the end of the episode.
Yeah.
They're arrested. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the only other thing is, because every episode has to end in the police department, the captain smacks the computer and it sparks.
Yes. Well, that's it. Every
That's
episode ends with a button with Captain Boyd, because you hired this actor, so he's got to show up.
Yeah.
And it's as per usual. He's congratulating Detective Curtis, rightly reprimanding Wally for not telling anyone he went out of the country.
Yeah.
And then he's just like, these computers stink. He hits one and they all start sparking because Automan's mad for getting hit.
And that's it. And then it's like, that's the end of the episode.
Credits roll.
Yeah, credits roll.
Oh, man. All right, let's keep going.
Yeah.
Here is the IMDb summary for episode 5, Unreasonable Facsimile.
That's a good title.
Unrelated to the episode, but
I know.
title.
I know. What it should have been is a fax-related episode.
Oh, I would have loved a fax. I love fax-related episodes.
We had one once before.
Sleepwalkers.
That's right.
Otto, you watched the wrong tapes.
Not wrong. Right. In fact, for the first time, I realized what's been missing in my life.
What's been missing?
Lust, Walter. Passion. Ruthlessness, deceit. I'm missing the struggle for life's most worthy goals, power and romance.
What have I done?
Choruses of angels, midnight rendezvous, burning desires.
Yeah, Otto, I get the picture.
Walter, I've been in the world for close to 6 months, and I still haven't fallen in love.
You don't understand. You're a hologram. You're not even real.
Neither are the people in soap operas, and they fall in love every 20 minutes.
A helicopter crash prompts a businessman to look into possible defective parts. He gets killed, and it looks like a mugging. Walter asks Otto to look at some criminal profile tapes, but Otto views a soap opera instead and realizes he's never felt love or passion.
So exhausting. This whole kind of idea of him, like, that you've seen in many science fiction and fantasy shows, which is a robot learning to become more human or learning about himself. But for whatever reason, the show, it's so exhausting.
You don't like horny Otto?
No.
It's very funny, too, because this whole episode is about him, like, discovering passion, or as he says, quote, lust.
Yeah, lust.
But he did last episode as well.
I know.
So that ship sailed, I'm afraid.
I like, though, that apparently, looking at my notes, the thing I'm most concerned about is what we talked about earlier about the apartment. I have a note in bold and in all caps that says, this is clearly a different apartment. I'm very upset about it.
Well, the episode starts out with an all-stock footage helicopter chase.
Yes, that's right. Oh, you know what I loved is of the helicopter chase is the voiceover or the
radio
the radio ADR chair. I loved it. It was just like, there's something wrong. I think it's this thing. Boom.
Yeah, the rotor's going out.
Yeah.
I will say that it's a good chase from a better show, clearly. Like,
yeah.
It's like the helicopter's really low and speeding after this car.
Yeah, it looks like it's from the A-Team or something.
Yeah, it looks great. And then, of course, the rotor goes out, and what we see is a huge explosion over a hillside, and we're to know this police helicopter crashed and the rotor problem. And then we cut to a news report, and it's like, police helicopter crashed today into a campsite, killing 3 campers and the 2 pilots. I was like, holy fuck, that's a tragedy.
Yeah, I love it. Wouldn't it be great if they had seen that? You just have the kid like
cut to like a kid like roasting marshmallows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I was just like, that was way darker than required.
Well, yeah, it's exactly. It's like, why would you even add that? You just be like, also, I think the only reason we see the news report is because there's someone watching and it's the guy
who Henry who works at this company.
Yes.
A company that does something I am not clear on. I don't think they make helicopters. They appear to be a helicopter part supply company?
Yes. They're a subcontractor who does what I'm going to assume military and other kind of vehicles like that. They help supply parts for either building or repairing these
helicopters.
Helicopters specifically.
Because as we'll find out later, they also do traffic copters.
Yeah, they love copters.
But yes, him and his partner, Jarrett Powers, top-notch name. They run this company. Henry hears about this crash, and he starts looking into he looks at a floppy disk he has in his office full of invoices, and he's just like, hey, remember all those surplus parts we bought from a different company and then sold as new to the LAPD? I think they might be defective.
Yeah, what I like, though, is this guy basically is supposed to be, at least for a part of the episode, sort of the moral center of this company. It's like he's realized a tragedy has happened with his helicopter because of what they sold. A part they were selling. I'm like, but you had no problem pretending that these parts originally were new, though they were used. Like, you knew you were doing it.
There's no crime here. They bought surplus parts from a different company. Yes, they marked them up and sold them for more money to the LAPD. But that's just business. You just did a business. You did not do a
But
crime.
he feels guilty about it because they weren't being entirely honest.
That's basically, this is where the crime comes in, is he's like, oh no, those parts we bought from, I wrote down the name of the company. They had like a ton of weird companies, so I don't have them anymore. They're defective. So we better call up the LAPD and say, oops, defective parts.
Yes, it's not only that. It's we better fess up to it and take whatever punishment there might be, whether it's legal or what, because that person's death is on us.
Yeah. But Powers is like, dude, we're selling the company tomorrow. That's their problem. Like, let's just sell the fucking company.
Yeah.
And like, that's the new owner's problem, dude. Like, let's just give it 12 hours.
He kind of has a point.
Which, I mean, it is like a little morally corrupt, but also like clearly whoever did the due diligence didn't do a very good job, I guess.
Yeah.
And basically Powers is upset, so he calls up this other guy who I'm like, who's this guy? Like, I'm like, who's this other guy? But what we come to learn is like, Powers calls up this mobster named Ed.
And what I loved about it is he calls the guy, and the guy's just taking the phone call in the pool.
He's just in a pool.
Yeah.
And he's like, Ed, Henry's freaking out about this thing. He's going to ruin this deal. And Ed's just like, that's no good. He's like, hold on, I'm getting a call on my other line. Oh, it's Henry calling me.
Yeah, it becomes, what I love is it becomes, I don't think it's probably a thing now, but when we were younger, the novelty of having more than one line on your phone and like trashing one friend to another friend on the other line, it just reminds me of high school. And that's basically what it is. He's like, oh, hey, the guy you're complaining about, he's on the other line. Hold on. Let me screw around with him a little bit.
Yeah.
Hey, you wouldn't believe what I told him.
Exactly. That's exactly
Yeah.
what, like, so he's like, oh, Ed's like, let me get this call from Henry. And Henry's like, Ed, thank you so much for setting up the sale of our company. We really appreciate it. But like, I'm a little worried about this thing, and I don't think Powers wants to tell anybody. And Ed's just like, you got such a good morality to you. Come meet me at my favorite singles bar tonight, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you come to this hookup bar. That's where we'll talk about it. I'm like, okay.
And they go to this singles bar. They hang out. They have a couple drinks. And he's like, all right, well, let's go to the cops and show them your floppy disk, which you didn't bring with you or something. Like, there's a whole subplot about where this floppy disk is that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, they forget about it after the scene. But all we see is, like, he's like, oops, I got a gun in my pocket. And we just come to learn, instead of going to the police, Ed murdered Henry.
He murdered him off camera, which is the line I had that I said at the beginning of this episode, which is, we've got to take a detour to the morgue.
Yeah, right. Anyway, this is where we finally cut back to our heroes, because we cut to Wally. He's in his apartment that we're seeing for the first time.
Well, that's what's weird about it. But then what I like is, he's got a guest over.
He's got a guest.
And what they're doing is they're cracking walnuts.
You gotta have a snack. You gotta have a
And
snack for a guest.
It's two humongous bowls of walnuts. It's like, it's enough walnuts for like a football team. Why they're just eating walnuts is the oddest thing. I don't know where props came up with this, but anyways, that's what you do when you go to Wally's. You crack walnuts.
That's what he serves all of his guests.
Yeah.
This man who's there is some sort of executive at a video game company.
That's right. Yeah,
who
yeah.
wants to hire Wally to develop a video game based on the hit TV series / parody of Dallas, Abilene.
Yeah. So I guess what we as an audience are supposed to get from this is that we know Wally's very good with computers. Obviously, he's created Automan.
We know he's a computer boy.
He's a computer boy, and I think that's right. I think what it is supposed to be is that he's well known to be a sort of a computer genius that has some renown, I suppose, enough that a computer company wants to hire him to create a
video game designer suddenly.
Yeah.
It's not an applicable skill set.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's all to set up.
It's like, set up that the writers know nothing about computers.
Yeah, it's more so. It's, again, like we've mentioned before, they have an overly complicated thing they need to get to, and instead of just getting to it, they have to make all these.
Wally needs a side gig.
Yeah, there's just all these problems, and basically what this is they need to have Automan watch a bunch of soap opera tapes. Yeah. So just to get him there, instead of just having any reasons, like he just walks in and goes, "Oh, there's soap opera tapes," and he watches them. Which
or
also,
Otto's just started watching a lot of TV.
Yeah, just he was been watching TV recently. Done. They have to have this whole stupid thing that's never going to come back about him creating video games, so that he can accidentally have Automan watch the wrong tapes. That's basically what this is.
The executive basically leaves Wally with 6 months of episodes of this show, all these VHS tapes, basically. And Wally's got to go to work, so he summons Automan.
Because, by the way, the people designing this video game and the graphics, whatever, really need to know the intricacies of the plot lines of this show.
Well, he's also the writer of the game. He's the writer. He's the designer. He's doing it all.
He's doing it all as a side gig as a police officer.
Exactly. But he's like, Automan, I got to go to work. I have some criminal profiling tapes for you to watch so you can be a better detective. But I'm not going to tell you where they are. But there is also this stack of tapes directly in front of you, which to Automan, like, it's not his fault. That would seem to be what Wally's referring to.
Yeah, if you said to me, I've got a whole bunch of videotapes I need you to watch, and there's a whole bunch of videotapes in front of me.
And I walk out the door.
Yeah, I'd assume it'd be those, not the ones that are hidden somewhere else.
But basically, Automan watches 6 months of Abilene.
Yeah. Which I don't know if this even works that well. The basic kind of joke is that he gets really into soap operas, and everything he wants to do is sort of like, I guess, overly dramatic and intense and stuff. But I just don't know if that joke translates very well to a recognizable character trait.
I mean, I don't know Dallas that well. And I think somewhere along the writing, they realized they weren't allowed to use Dallas, and this is what they came up with. But this feels like this is
or
all
Dynasty or something like that.
Winks and nods at a thing maybe if this were popular you would know about, but like I just don't know anything about it.
Well, no, but I mean, everyone kind of knows the basic joke about soap operas, like, oh, it's not me, it's my twin who had a baby with my cousin. Like, everyone gets those like kind of lame jokes, and I think that's what they're going for. But it just it doesn't really make sense in the context of the plot they're trying to tell. And also, I just don't think there's anything terribly interesting that you can do with that as him playing a character. I just didn't think it really worked. Of all the things they've had him doing, I was just like, I just don't think this works. It's not evocative of anything.
It's just an excuse for horny Automan.
Yeah, so he can dress up again, as he does every episode.
Anyway, at the LAPD, Detective Curtis, he's basically put on the murder of Henry. He's just like, found this guy, murdered. We think it's a mugging, but look into it. I'm sure some mayor or somebody wants you to do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, and Wally, the only clue we have is in his address book. He wrote down CD 2000 in his address book. Use your computers to solve the mystery of what that acronym means.
Mm-hmm. Is this when he doesn't want Automan to go to the club because he thinks Automan's too horny?
Yes. Because basically what happens is Wally walks out. Wally doesn't do his own job. He just calls Automan. He's just like, hey, what do you think the acronym CD2000 stands for? And Automan just basically is like, here's like 7 things it could stand for. But the most likely one is Club Dionysus at 8 p.m. because it was in someone's day timer. It's just like,
it's like, oh, I just looked in the day timer. It said where he'd be. Like, oh, yeah, good detective work.
Well, that's why I'm like, listen, I think the detectives can solve this mystery. He wrote CD 2000 in the 8 o'clock section of his day timer. It's 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then what place has that acronym CD?
Yeah.
At any rate, and then Automan's so excited. He's like, it's a singles club, and I've been watching Dynasty, so I'm very interested in talking to ladies. Can I come?
Yeah.
Well, he's like, no, you're too horny.
But he'd already put on like a turtleneck and jacket, or maybe he does after. That's his like look.
Yeah, he asks Cursor for a good look that's not too ostentatious.
Mm-hmm.
Turtleneck and jacket. And then, of course, Automan, as soon as Wally leaves, Automan's like, well, no, I'm going to that club, obviously.
Yeah.
I'm not going.
Which is, to be fair to the show, I know we kind of poke at it, but it has become a trait for Automan, which is, I'm going to do what I want.
Wally says no.
Yeah.
It's too bad, Wally.
Yeah.
And, of course, what we see is, like, Wally's driving his beater down there, and then the other car speeds past him.
Yeah, to get to the club first. And it's like, it's sort of like a piano bar, because, of course, as soon as you saw the piano, you knew, oh, I guess Automan's going to play piano later.
As soon as Automan walks in, he sees a man playing piano, he's just like, wow, I could do that better.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, well, that'll come back.
And then, like, 2, like, I guess, sexy ladies both really like Automan and kind of fight over him for some reason.
Well, he's an 11.
That's right. He's an 11. But then, more importantly, Delta Burke shows up.
Who?
Delta Burke. She plays the main woman in this.
Oh, yes, because when Wally gets there, he goes to talk to the bartender, but Henry, the dead man Henry's daughters there are also looking into his Rachel.
And played by a very young Delta Burke, and you probably don't remember.
What was Delta
Burke was mostly famous in the late 80s for being in Designing Women. She was a
Ah.
big star at the time. She's married to, what's his name, McCraney. Major Dad. They've been married for many years.
I know those names.
Gerard McCraney.
I couldn't imagine what they looked like.
Gerald McCraney. Anyways, a good actor in his own right. And anyways, but it was Delta Burke, very young Delta Burke. I was like, hey, I didn't recognize her face.
Yeah. And basically this is where the singles club thing sort of picks up, and it's just like, oh, she's also looking to her dad's death because he said he was coming here before he died. The bartender's like, well, I recognize his face from this picture. He was here with one of our regulars, Ed.
Yeah.
Oh, also very funny, Ed, 75 years old as well.
Yeah.
I was surprised they go to a singles club. You know, we know it's going to be Automan's going to be flirting up with women, etc., etc. No Cursor. Cursor never shows up.
It is curious, isn't it?
I thought, as soon as they said they're going to Singles Club, I was like, fuck, Cursor's going to do something so bad here. Cursor's basically not in these 2 episodes.
I agree. I wonder if at a certain point, like, they were like, this is not working. Let's
Yeah.
just, like, let's not have him circle breasts.
Maybe. Automan can do it himself.
Yeah, exactly. He's taking over that personality of Cursor.
But they've met Rachel. They kind of have a sense that this Ed guy's involved. They got to go find him. But Rachel's not like, for some reason, she's not really that interested in helping Wally. She's like, I don't know if I'm going to help you.
Because he's not as attractive. That's all.
And then Automan walks up to join the conversation. She's like, oh, I've changed my mind. Let's work together. Now that I've seen this 11,
Yes.
I'm on board for this like crime solving together.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of back and forth in this episode that was like hard to follow and didn't really make a lot of sense.
Well, there's a whole part. Maybe you can explain this to me. And I actually weirdly even forgot about it till I went back and was looking to pull clips for social media. But there's a part where like Wally is on the road and some guy like runs him off the road, and then he gets in a fight with the guy, and then he beats the one guy down and then tries to get up a fence, and the other guy like beats up Wally and says, "Stay away from Rachel. She's my girl." And I was like, is that her actual boyfriend, or is it like a mob thing? I was like, I didn't even understand what this was.
I'll try to explain this because it is very. This is exactly what I was going to talk about. This back and forth.
Yeah.
It's very confusing. Essentially, what is happening here is what we know is the company's for sale. They've got a buyer. It's going to happen tomorrow. What has happened is the mob has essentially helped bankroll this company because Powers, I guess, gotten to the mob for money.
This show is so complicated.
So the mob helped front him, and now they've helped arrange this sale. And I guess maybe the mob also has to do with them marking up the price of surplus. It doesn't know that really matters. But the mob and Powers, now that Henry's dead, needs Rachel's signature on the paperwork to sell the company.
Oh, I didn't even get that.
So the mob has been following Rachel around to ensure that nothing happens to her, so she'll show up at the party they're going to throw to sign the paperwork. And so when they see Wally talking to her, they basically send some goons to beat up Wally to say, like, that's my girlfriend, stay away from her, to, like, throw him off the
I
case.
see.
And all of that is just happening because they need Wally to leave his apartment so that Rachel can show up at Wally's apartment. He's gone, but Automan is there, so that the two of them can flirt in Wally's apartment while she's gone, and Otto can be like, oh, Wally works for me, so don't worry about him. I'm in charge. And, like, Rachel doesn't seem to be... She's worried that her dad got murdered, for sure. But she's not hip to the, like, idea that the mob's involved or that this sale is not bona fide. As far as she's concerned, she's going to a party that night to sign the paperwork with the new buyers. And she's telling all of this to Otto while they're flirting on Wally's couch. And Automan turns to her and said, and she's like, I'm a little nervous to go by myself. It'd be great if I had a date. And Automan turns to her and says, I'd love to go as a date with you. Also, I'm going to go as a millionaire, as a fake millionaire, and I'm going to try to buy the company up from the other buyers. And she looks at him and she's like, okay, I guess so. But, like, Automan, like, invents this thing. There's no reason for any, like, at no point in this plot do they have any concept this sale's not legitimate.
Honestly, I must have just tuned out at a certain point because it's just like, it seems like characters walking to scenes sort of apropos of nothing. They're just like, they walk in, they talk about something, they move out somewhere else. And I'm always just, at this point, I know, like, it's overly complicated for complicated sake, and it's just going to get to the point where either Automan's going to absorb some bullets or he's just going to shock someone by seeing his appearance. That's what we're going to get to. So all this other stuff doesn't really matter.
I mean, this is the worst offender of them all. Is this the one that, like, the plot points don't even connect? It's just like they're just like moving forward on pure momentum, and they just need to get Automan to this party.
Right.
He shows up at the party. We finally get the scene you've been waiting for, where he plays piano real good.
Yeah.
And it's not even that good. It's okay.
Well, it's because they can't even show the hands, so they just have to have it from behind the piano. But what I like is that the crowd loves it.
That's how you know.
Yeah, like, and it's a bunch of old people, and they get up and they start clapping and they start dancing, and Automan's eating it up. But the crowd, they've never seen anything like it. No one has ever played piano like Automan.
Yeah. The stranger who showed up at this party for the sale of a company.
Yeah.
And then Automan he's just walking around. He's chatting it up with, like, Powers and Powers' wife, and there's, like, an old couple who's going to buy the company. So he's just chatting up with them, and he's, like, in full, like, he basically is now, he's a Texas cattle baron is the concept of his character. And he's bragging about how the whole soap opera Abilene is based on him and his family. He, like, openly brags about murdering a judge for some reason.
That's right. Yeah, it gets weird because it gets to the point where this is what I didn't think it worked. It's not even that he's using the tropes of a soap opera.
No, he's just back to Mr. Otto.
Yeah, he's back to Mr. Otto, but he's saying, just so you guys know, I'm so awesome. These people have based a show on me, and this is all real. Oh, yeah, and also I kill people and stuff. And everyone's like, that's shocking. And he's like, big deal. You'd ever seen an oil baron? No one can touch me. That's how rich I am. And it's just like, but
Cattle.
what?
He got rich on cattle, not oil.
Whatever.
You know how cattle gets you so rich?
Yes.
I think at some point it's partly there for the joke that someone asks him, like, how many head of steer do you raise? And he's like, I raise the whole steer. Because he's so funny.
Yeah.
This is all going on. This is like a long sequence. Like Wally shows up halfway because he left a note on the computer for Wally saying, I'm going to a party for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
Wally shows up and Automan has to like improv. So he's like, this is my accountant.
I know. It's such an odd show.
What I really like though is when Wally walks in, Automan's like in full like dirtbag mode. So he's like, here comes the little guy. And it's so funny too, like Powers is there with his wife. You know, he's really holding court Automan, and Powers' wife is like literally throwing herself at Automan in front of her husband.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody cares. It's just like Automan's an 11, it's fine.
Yeah.
And it's at this point that Automan gets to the point where he's like, now that I'm talking to Powers and the very elderly couple who's going to buy the company from him is here, I'm going to like now be like, hey, I've just showed up here. You can trust me. I'm a very rich man. I would like to buy this company for cash. And they're like, you don't even know what we're selling it for. Like the old man's like, you don't even know the price, and the paperwork's almost done.
I think he said, doesn't he say like, I'll just give him double or
no,
something
I think
like
he's
that?
like, I'll add 20% to whatever it is. And like Powers is like, I gotta go talk to somebody, and he runs off because that's so much money. And Automan, and later they'll kind of like say it's like Automan's trying to help this couple by protecting them from what this fraudulent deal. They don't know it's a fraudulent deal. They don't know anything. But he's like, I'm trying to help them. So what Automan does is he turns to this elderly couple and he tells the old man that his wife slept with the entire Dallas Cowboys team.
I know.
And
it's
like, what is happening here?
It's like, the point being, I'm going to do something really gross and rude to turn them off so much they leave. But in fact, I'm actually a really good guy because I've saved them for this bad deal. And it's like, this is the way we're doing this.
And it
like
doesn't save them from a deal.
I know. It's like you could just stop. You could just stop the bad guys, and that's how it stops the deal.
It's just like so rude to the point of just like it's just like beyond like it's not even like a sort of like this is at the point where I'm like, oh, this isn't even a kid show because what he's saying here is so adult.
Yeah. And again, but on another point that we've made before is his character. Is that a trope of soap operas? That he's that evil? Is that what he's supposed to be?
Well, and the thing is, like, obviously the old couple is super offended.
Yeah.
But every other person there, and it's only women they cut to, is like so turned on. Just like, no, this man is like the grossest human being. Like, this is not working. This is not going to work for you.
Right? It works for Rachel.
They love it. They love it. Powers, though, he runs off to find Ed, and he's just like, Ed, you'll never believe it. This even richer man here knows about the company. So Ed picks up the phone and has the mob run a computer check on Mr. Otto. And he's like, well, turns out he's very rich. But, I mean, Ed, as seems to be the case with a lot of these bad guys, is just, like, very skeptical still. He's just like, this seems unlikely, I gotta say. What's even more bizarre in this sequence, they're like, run a computer check. How rich is Otto? Blah, blah, blah. Should we buy it? No, this is insane. There's a knock on the door. And Detective Curtis has shown up to the party to inform them that a traffic helicopter has also crashed with a faulty rotor. And this time they bothered to look at the serial number on the rotor and tracked it back to their company. And he's like, but that's all. And Detective Curtis just walks out of the party. Like, it's not like, I'm here to tell you, like, we caught you. He's just there to tell them another helicopter crashed and it looks like your company's involved. But I'm investigating an unrelated murder, so I gotta go.
They just had to have him in.
Go back to the party. Mr. Automan is supposed to be there to, like, at this point it seems very clear Automan is there to kibosh this deal and, like, stop the mob. Except now he turns to Rachel and is just like, hey, you want to get out of here? And Rachel's like, yeah, my dad has a beach house down the road. Do you want to go there instead and, like, forget about whatever's happening, whatever plan we came here to execute?
He's like, you know what? Absolutely.
Let's get out of here. They hop in his automobile, take off. We do the exact same gag as last episode. The mob tries to follow them so they can keep track of Rachel. They're like, oh, that car made a 90-degree turn. I bet we can. Nope, they can't. That gag played the third time now that gag happens.
Yeah.
Cut back to the party. A butler walks up to Wally and says, oh, your buddy left. Here's a note he left you. And Wally's like, oh, I got to drive to this beach house now, I guess.
Yeah, where Automan, is kind of seducing her, but also not. Like, he knows he's seducing her, but then he's like, by the way, it's not going to happen.
Well, he's just like, he gets to the point where he's like going to do something with her, and he's just like, this is where the commercial break happens.
That's right. That's the gag.
And
yeah.
she's like, you're so funny. And he's just like, no, I don't know what happens now. And she's like, you're so funny. And he just keeps saying, he's just like, I don't know what happens at this point because I've only ever seen a television. She's like, you're such a card. I was like,
Yeah.
what? How, like.
Yeah. And then I think Wally shows up pretty much immediately.
Yeah, well, we kind of missed a little bit here. When they get to the beach house, they look in the mailbox and there's that floppy disk they locked up.
That's right. Yeah.
And this is what's crazy. Automan puts it into the computer, looks at it, and he's just like, oh, so this is what's been happening this whole time. They've been selling surplus auto parts. I've had no clues whatsoever, but somehow I've also solved the whole crime before we got to the beach house.
Yeah.
Like,
and I like that as an audience member, you were supposed to have been tracking this disc the whole time. Now you haven't seen since the first episode, the first
5
part of the
minutes.
episode. And you're like, okay, sure, that disc. I don't even remember.
Whatever. And yes, Wally shows up and they're like, Wally, we discovered the crime is defective parts or something. And then the mob shows up because they're like, oh, we lost the will. We were following them, but they probably just went to the dad's beach house. And they only show up because they're like, all right, we need you to sign the paperwork now.
Yeah.
Probably thankfully for us, the video file we've got is missing a reel.
Yeah, it was, right?
Basically, he shows up, the mob showing up, we know what's going to happen. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, you discovered the faulty parts, which aren't really faulty, they're surplus, but we just don't want to tell anybody. Also, we need you to sign the paperwork to complete the sale. I guess they're not going to sell to Mr. Otto, they're just going to continue selling to the company.
Because he seems sketchy, to be fair.
And then we're going to murder you all after you sign, because I guess you know too much or whatever. There seems to be a missing scene, but the missing scene is just we cut to them, and Otto's now beating up all the guys.
Yeah.
And the main mob boss has got like Rachel at gunpoint. He's like, I'm kidnapping her, goodbye. And we just end up in another chase. He gets in his car, drives away.
Yeah.
They're like, Cursor,
Make
call
a
the
wall.
autocopter.
Yeah.
They fly in the autocopter. Cursor, put a wall in the middle of the road forcing him to stop. Wouldn't it have been better if he just like smashed into and killed everybody?
Yeah. Well, it's always this thing, and I know it's kind of a kids' TV, but the thing that Cursor makes always just seems kind of lame. It's like, I made a wall in the road.
Yeah.
And there's just so many other things you could have done.
Well, forces them to stop. They land the helicopter, which should take like 15 minutes to do, but they land instantaneously. The mobster is arrested because all the cops show up because I guess they call Detective Curtis, rescue the girl. I like that they're pulling the mobster out of the car, and he's just like, I could have sworn there was a wall there, but I don't know. Like, he's so nonchalant about the fact there's no wall anymore.
Yeah.
And then Wally watches as Automan takes Rachel to the side. They make out a bit. You just cut to Wally smiling a huge grin as he watches. And then they just have a weird conversation. They're like, well, let's break up now. And she's like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Yeah, you have to resolve this.
Episode's over.
Yeah, and then we mentioned it on the last episode that every episode ends in the police department, except this episode. It goes to Wally's apartment.
Captain Boyd is there,
and Captain Boyd's there. They like show up with like champagne.
Yeah, it's Captain Boyd, it's Roxanne, it's Detective Curtis. They've all shown up at Wally's house to celebrate Wally successfully solving the case with champagne. Up till now, Captain Boyd has hated Wally, but now Captain Boyd is like, it's vintage champagne. He spent a lot of money on this.
He also
champagne.
he knows where Wally lives and seems very comfortable. Like, he's been there many times.
It's so crazy because they go in, they're celebrating, and they're like, what were you up to? Wally's like, oh, I'm just working on my computer. And Captain Boyd's just like, this guy's always working on his computers. I love computers.
Yeah, and they're like, that's it. That's the episode.
Well, the real gag at the end, and I'm just going to read the quote because it's so stupid.
Okay.
But he's like, what are you doing on your computer, Wally? Wally says, I just figured out how many points to give a divorcee for having an affair with a plastic surgeon.
I don't get it. I still don't get it.
It's because he's been working on the Abilene game.
Oh.
And he's like...
my note is, I don't get the plastic surgeon joke.
And at this point, the only thing that happens in computer games is you get points.
Oh.
So he's just like, in the game, he has a scene where, as a divorcee, you can have an affair with a plastic surgeon, and he's giving you 500 points for doing so.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad I didn't get that joke.
I was also like, are you telling your boss you have another job?
Yeah, I guess.
Whatever. It doesn't really matter. But that, yes, of course, we wrap up with a little Captain Boyd button.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the last 2 episodes.
Oh, yeah.
This show, I feel like, I know we're getting into ratings now. It's not that the show has gotten progressively worse, but I feel like my threshold for forgiveness is dwindling.
Well, I will say, when you started the episode by like, we're going to create our own episode of it, and you did the very much that, like, pulling balls out of a thing, and that's how you write the episode. I was going to say it then, but I waited till we were done this episode. You had too many balls in that hat. They only have like 4 balls, and one of them is Otto, rich bad man.
Yeah.
Car turn right fast. Their guy crash. Like, they only have like 3 or 4 actual ideas because now Automan has been a rich bad guy 3 episodes in a row.
Yeah.
In a row.
Yeah, where he's called Mr. Otto.
I think he had a slightly different name in this last one, but it doesn't matter. Like, it's the same character every time.
But what they do to...
I mean, I'll grant you, it's when this actor is the best when he's playing like this kind of smarmy rich jerk. He's great at it.
Yeah.
But to do it 3 times in a row.
But what it is it's to distract you from realizing that they have the same gags and the same plot devices over and over and over. We're going to make the most convoluted story that you could ever watch in a TV show and only barely explain it by the end because really it's just going to be those same elements you see every episode.
Yeah, it's very funny to me that they basically played the same card every time. I was just like, and I don't know. I mean, I will say I enjoy it the most when the actor's playing Automan like that. Like, that's when it's the most enjoyable. But it's also, I'm just like, just make this the show, then make Automan an evil hologram who's very rich.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, why don't we do the ratings? What do you want to give the first episode, episode 4?
I mean, Ships in the Night is not very good.
No, I agree with you.
My
note, just before I give my score, mine was, this needs more rewrites. I feel like of almost all the episodes, this episode felt in some ways the most overwritten and the most underwritten of an episode we have. Like the weakest idea and the most overwritten to make this weak idea seem like an episode.
Yeah. And I mean, these two, it's so funny because you said it earlier and we've talked about this another, like the idea this is just a kid show to be a little more forgiving. I now don't think it's a kid show anymore. Like these last 2 episodes were hypersexual.
Yeah.
We didn't talk about it, but
I mean, it could just be the time period, though. It could be what was allowed for a kid's show is much more adult than what's allowed now.
I just think but I think the thing is like it's not. I don't think they're aiming at kids. I think they are aiming older because like they really like they want a plane to crash into camper, so it's a real tragedy. Like literally, the start of the San Cristobal one is just like you could sell cocaine. It's just like it's like such a button for like this is gonna be a real like dramatic episode. We didn't talk about it, but when Otto is shooting craps at that casino, he's literally standing next to a woman with no clothes on.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay, well, this is not aimed at children, clearly. Like, this is clearly aimed at an adult audience.
But the intellectual level of the writing is
for children. This is why it's so confusing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 3.5 for Ships in the Night.
We're very, very similar. I thought I was going to go harder than you, but I'm going to give it a 4 to 10. And it's just for the reasons we said. It's a weird show that doesn't... It's not that it hasn't gelled, because it knows what it is. It's just what it is not very good.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they know, like, let's talk about the next one, I guess, but because they repeat so much, like, it's a new crime, a new plot, the mob's back, so the mobs come back again. And then the last half very much mirrors what we saw in Ships in the Night. It's like Otto plays a rich bad guy.
Yeah.
A little different way to use him. They use it differently, but it's still like back to that well. But all of that said, I did like it more.
I did too. The second episode I thought was a little bit better.
I liked it more. It was more enjoyable. Like, it was so confusing, but at least it was fun, which is the way I felt about the one where he's a gangster the whole time. I'm going to give it a 4, though, still, because I'm just like, it's just a retread of so much we've seen already.
Yeah, I'm similar. I'm going to give it a 5, a little bit higher. I think it was like right down the middle of what this show could be, but much better than the first episode.
Absolutely. Jordan, we've watched... We've done 3 full podcasts about it, which means it's time to check the old computer. Continued red computer.
Holy moly, that took a while to get there. It has been a while. We've got to really brush this thing down because I don't even remember. It's been months now since we've touched this computer. Does it even work?
I mean, you were using it earlier. It took 17 hours, but
I forgot I used it earlier.
But yeah, so now that you've got it warmed up with that game, hopefully we can get there a little quicker. It's been a while, actually, too, since I think we've watched a show where I literally didn't know where we were at. Like, I honestly am just like, are we?
I don't think we're under 5.
I think it's going to be
I think it's
close.
very close, but I think we're over 5. I think we're going to keep watching this show.
All right, give me a second. Let me punch the numbers in. All right, Jordan. Are you sitting down?
Yeah, let me check. Yep, he's
Yeah,
definitely
I
sitting
can
down.
see that now. Yeah, I confirm he is sitting down. So I punched in the computer, continued running computer, and the current series average is 5.25.
Ooh, it was close. I knew it wasn't going to go under.
It's riding a razor's edge, and
It's that 666 that it got that one time that really helped it.
It's true. That 666 is holding it above
Yeah,
the line
yeah.
for sure. I'm curious if it will keep going. It's going to have to really pick up its game, though.
Yeah, I don't think it will. I mean, let's be fair. I don't think it will.
It's really treading water right now.
It's treading water, and we're how many episodes? 5 episodes in. So I don't think the future's too bright for this show.
And we had talked about this, Kevin, because Kevin at some point had told us he snuck a peek ahead, and he thought he suspected it would follow some of the tricks we'd seen in some of these other periods of time. So I honestly at this point thought we'd see like a doppelganger. But we're not even seeing them run some like of the expected plots I'd expect to see. We're just seeing him run the same plot.
The same plot, yeah.
Which is baffling.
Well, I'm waiting for him to become a bachelor or something, like an auction or something like that. Or anyway,
he goes to a hologram town where it's run by women.
That's right. That's right.
Great. Anyway, that wraps it up for this episode. You'll have to come back soon to find out what the continuing adventures of us and Automan. But in the meantime, you can email us at gmail.com.
At continuumdrag@gmail.com.
And that's how it works. If you've got any thoughts on Automan, it's very funny. We have 2 guests. Our first 2 guests on this are very excited about Automan, so they're very interested to see where this is going. And I feel guilty we're getting so close to rejecting, but at the same time being like, I don't want to watch too much more of this. And of course on Instagram and Twitter, we'll have some clips from these 2 episodes. What do you think?
I think there's an electricity kiss.
Oh yeah.
There's, I don't know. I can't remember what
Car
happened.
turning right.
Car turning right, maybe. I don't know. Maybe some gambling.
But yes, of course, the handle on our social media is @continuumdrag. And that wraps it up for this episode. So listener, thank you for joining us. And Jordan, I'll see you next week.
I will see you then.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rex Seidler. Produced by Jordan Dullock and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Hughes.